DSOs were in the high, we're talking 60 to 80 plus days, significantly reduced to the mid to high 30s average days to pay. If Ramp helps you manage your vendor, Rippling helps manage your employee, we want to give finance the same level of tooling and automation to manage your customer. We think there is significant demand for someone to kind of crack that same level of satisfaction people now have with AP spend and payroll and bring that to all things collections and flow of funds in. And even though we are now racing to our first 100 employees, we have almost no one on the finance team. We have a fractional. I, as CEO, still run our billing and collections. Why we've been able to do that is we've raced to hundreds and hundreds of contracts and customers is the simplicity of tabs. Other than the approval of basically touching a steering wheel on a self-driving car, I do nothing other than just validate and check my cash forecast.
Welcome to Tech Finance. I'm your host, Sasha Orloff, repeat founder and current CEO of Puzzle, and self-professed finance nerd. On this show, we dive into the pulse of B2B fintech, from newly funded startups transforming the office of the CFO to major industry shifts, deals, and partnerships that are reshaping how we think about finance. You'll hear the most important developments, essential analysis, and of course, AI innovations. This show is brought to you by Puzzle and the Turpentine Podcast Network. Let's dive in.
All right, everybody. Hi. So as you know, this season we are focused on something that is near and dear to my heart, which is improving accounting with software and AI. So today's guest has, I think, taken the market by storm. It feels like you came out of nowhere into the hearts and minds of everybody. You have the best social media of any accounting software, any B2B software. I am constantly forwarding your stuff to my team. And so if anybody listening there does not follow Ali Tabs on LinkedIn or Twitter, do that now, because it is just a masterclass in how to come out and take this sort of over in an industry. It has been impressive. You just recently raised $25 million from General Catalyst. Shout out GC, but also Lightspeed. Shout out Justin, Primary, and a bunch of others. So I'm excited to have you on and get to share your story. We were originally introduced, I think, through Alex Tran, who is my neighbor, and has been talking about you guys every time we run into each other. And I also think Alex is one of the best fintech growth investors of all time. So also, if anybody out there happens to be a founder in fintech world looking for growth, Alex from GC is amazing. Anyway, let's turn it back to the star of the show. Ali, welcome to the show.
Sasha, thanks for having me. Everything you said, I've only been trying to catch up to you. You actually got me out of my comfort zone on social. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. I've never had Instagram, had no idea how to use it. And so watching you a few times helped me kind of start the masterclass. So I have you to thank, and I really appreciate you having me here today.
I guess I'm trying to pioneer by getting my face out there, and you've just upped the game and doing it better. So it's a mutual win. All right. For any listener out there who hasn't heard of Tabs before, give us the quick pitch. Like, what are you building and who's it for?
Absolutely. So ultimately, we are helping companies save time and collect faster and report more accurately. And ultimately, we think that where the finance stack is going is best of breed around a GL. And so over the last 5 years, many of us have become so accustomed to the Ripplings and the Ramps of the world. And why we started the business was we fundamentally believed something was missing on the actual flow of funds in. And we call that revenue. Some would call it a combination of billing, collections, rev rec. But up until the advent of AI, we believe the ability to create a modern horizontal platform was just not viable. And so that is the problem we're solving. We think there is significant demand for someone to kind of crack that same level of satisfaction people now have with AP spend and payroll and bring that to all things collections and flow of funds in. And that's what we're here to help.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like a ramp for the other side of the P&L and balance sheet, right? It's like saving you time and money, but for money coming into your business.
Exactly. If Ramp helps you manage your vendor, Rippling helps manage your employee, we want to give finance the same level of tooling and automation to manage your customer.
Awesome. So you've worked in tech, you've worked in consulting, you've worked on the Hill. What was your personal pain point or insight that led you to start this company? Or what was your God, this just needs to exist and I got to do this right now?
Yeah, I wish I'd learned this on the Hill or in consulting, but I think a lot of it just goes back to kind of where I started. So I actually, Sasha, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm a PhD dropout. I never thought I'd end up in tech. I studied the humanities, so it was not always all things finance. But why I always bring that up is I always think about problems from a very first principle standpoint. And so that kind of carried over to I got to be an operator for many years before I started Tabs. And it really came down to I was a COO and I managed a ton of different enterprise apps, cloud, ERP, CRM. And like many of the listeners today, it was through my own pain lived in NetSuite that ultimately got me thinking. And the thing that really got me thinking was the experiences around what was sold to me. And I was a NetSuite buyer even before Oracle acquired NetSuite. And I bought into the vision. It was like we're moving from on-prem to cloud. We are going to be a single vendor that will provide you a suite of software from AP procurement to RevRec and sign up for this mission. And I actually emotionally very much bought into that mission. But then I saw some of the faults of that when it became a reality with the amount of professional services, custom tooling, unknown costs, and just the amount of human and manual error that was involved in a lot of those processes. And then come knocking on my door, I see new vendors around payroll and AP and procurement. And I was like, all right, something's really interesting. There seems to be a debundling going on. And I think it was a combination of that and realizing that revenue for some reason had been vastly left behind. I went on back to my first principles, PhD anthropological thinking to kind of try to understand why that was and how do we reimagine the category.
I love it. I love it. It reminds me of two of my, bucket list items that I probably won't get to achieve anymore at this stage of my career was a PhD dropout and a ski bum up in Tahoe for a winter.
Well, I heard Tahoe's nearby, so you can still make it happen. And if it helps, it took me 2 months to realize I'm not going to be a good professor. So 2 months you can give up. You don't have to wait till year 5. I think someone will take you in for a couple of years, especially some of the online PhDs, and you can cut the Zoom course 2 months in.
We'll make puzzle insane, and then I'll just get an honorary PhD, and I'll drop out on some donation to some school at some point in the future. All right, so there's this like sort of this realization, or there's these best in class tools coming out, and if we sort of go through sections of a P&L or a balance sheet, there's obviously this gap in the revenue or the sort of accounts receivable place. Why was this the thing though? Like I get the first principles that exist. Why you and why right now?
Yeah, I think 2 things, and most of it is luck and timing. I don't think by any means, if you think about billing, RevRec, these are not nice to have workflows. Many of the listeners will be like, all right, there's so much AR software, there's so much billing software, there's so much collection software. There's Stripe for payments, which just printed $1 billion in billing the last 12 months. RevRec, Ali, what are you talking about? And my view is there's a lot of scattered point solutions that exist, but there still is not a horizontal platform that not only is able to go live with very little human capital, but also helps accomplish the entire end-to-end workflow, where I believe all of these workflows are interconnected versus duct taping different solutions. And so why me and why us? It comes down to, I started my exploration in late 2022. The company started in early 2023. And I think we were at the right time, at the right place. I think, Sasha, we met in 2023. I started telling you, hey, I think this is where the market's going. And I could not have been more lucky to have started the business a few months after GPT went live and realized I was on a call with a controller doing discovery in, I think, May 2023. And someone looked around and said, Ali, it's not about Dunning. It's not about Cash App. It's the contract, stupid. The reason why revenue hasn't been cracked is every business has a different business model, a different price book, a different set of products. And without any form of automation to extract that, and to be clear, that's a lot more complicated than a vendor agreement or an employee like payroll input. And so I was looking around summer 2023. I'm like, holy crap, like the LLM is this powerful tool combined with where machine learning is going. You can actually solve this problem at the root cause. And this was happening at the same time where every other either company or legacy software was trying to put downstream AI party tricks in the product. I said, look, forget all of that. We need to go to the core and figure out how we pull in contracts, usage, all of this context, because that's where people and services are so inefficient when it comes to revenue. And we were just, I think, really, Sasha, right time, right place, and had a team that was much smarter than me that was willing to listen to our fellow controllers, revenue experts, CFOs, that allowed us to have like an inflection point moment that got us off to the races in mid 23. And I think it helped us crack this in a way where we've just been able to build with a ton of velocity over the last 18 months.
I love it. Paint a picture for us. What do you think the future of how finance teams operate? And if you have any customer stories of how this is working like today and what it looks like in the future with Tabs, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, so I actually think we're in this unique moment where most of the legacy ERPs are going to get unbundled, meaning, do I fully believe NetSuite and Sage and Workday Financial go away? No. But this idea that it's a single vendor, that you're going to buy 19 different modules and pay the Bentley package. I think if you're already doing that in 2025, you have missed the mark of what happened even before AI. And so I think we're going to see two parts of the puzzle. I think we're going to see a lot of the legacy players shrink down to its core. And unless they have a very, very aggressive buy strategy, I think they're going to get left behind. They are not innovating at even the same level as a Salesforce that has Agentforce or whatever you name it, which is already going to have their own challenges to compete with startups and new technologies. And so on one end, I think we're going to see a great debundling, but I don't think, Sasha, they're going to move to like 16 different modules. There's 3 or 4 domains, particularly around what I would call the flow of funds out. I think we're already seeing a consolidation between AP spend and procurement. You see this with Ramp, Zip. Zip announced a big partnership with Brex to try to better bundle their products. Obviously, we know where Parker and Rippling are headed, and Gusto and others. I think on our end, we are very cognizant of that. And so we believe it needs to be a single system that can house all of your unstructured commercial records, run billing, RevRec, 606, non-GAAP, all in a single system. And I think that's the system of the future. Now, that doesn't mean there's not new opportunities for other entrants. Like I know this last week and the last couple of weeks, you've been talking a lot to our friends on the new age ERP side. I think there's going to be new opportunities for folks who are willing to rethink the ERP at the core. Obviously, you've been probably the first leader in this space over the last couple of years. And I think the way then companies scale is they work with someone at the core. Frankly, QuickBooks gets further strengthened in this moment. Like when I think about our fastest growing companies that are on Tabs, like a Cursor or a Cognition, many of these fast growing companies have had no time to change their GLs. They're still on QuickBooks, but they're able to adapt to more automation on the flow of funds in through the likes of Ramp or Zip or you name it. And then if Tabs can provide equivalent tooling, we just did a case study with a fantastic business, Statik, and this is all announced in their last fundraise. Like they're a one-person finance team, close to 50 million in revenue on a very simple GL, something like Tabs. And I think that's like where the future goes. And that doesn't mean you don't have finance professionals, but a lot of the areas that finance has had significant headwinds and talent, particularly given the accounting shortages, those folks are not going to do billing and AR work. And you don't need 14 revenue accountants at a couple $100 million in revenue. And so that's where I think the huge opportunity is in this space.
Not only the finance team, my last 2 companies, we had a 15-person finance team, 2 to 3 of which were engineers, just trying to get all of this stuff organized and like understood and reconciled just in and of the system, let alone to cash and what's happening later. So
You're spot on. Those are the roles, Sasha. I think people forget. It's not just FP&A, accounting, treasury. The amount of admins that have to sit on top of a ERP like NetSuite, Salesforce, and it's not like they're building new products and features. They're retooling these systems for new business models, contract types, just to try to make the glove fit to scale. And so I think those are huge opportunities we're already seeing in the AI native world. I think as we head to the more agentic world, it goes deeper, but there's definitely some quick wins already in the marketplace.
Hey, we'll get back to the conversation in a moment after a word from our sponsors. All right. One of my favorite tools that I use and we use is Notion. Notion is used by thousands of startups around the world as their connected workspace for everything from engineering specs to new hire onboarding to fundraising. Notion has a special offer for listeners. 6 months of free Notion with unlimited AI, value of over $6,000. So you can access the limitless power of AI right inside of Notion to build and scale your company and team with one tool. Get 6 months free of Notion with unlimited AI, along with custom templates when you apply for notion.com/startups/puzzle. Once again, that's notion.com/startups/puzzle. Go for it. Building a company is hard enough. You shouldn't have to second guess your numbers too. One day, an investor might ask you a question that you just can't answer. The next, you realize your books aren't as clean as you thought. Sound familiar? Puzzle is rethinking accounting from the ground up with an AI-first ledger that eliminates repetitive tasks and gives you real-time financial clarity so you can focus on running your business, not fixing spreadsheets. Accounting should work the way you do, fast, intuitive, and built for the future. Come check us out at puzzle.io.
All right. Well, you brought up 2 points that I feel like I just have to dig into. Have you already released the case study with Statik? I'd love to hear a little bit of the high level of that.
100%. So Statik case study went live, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I'll share it with you offline. And you can, if you just Google tabs Statik case study, it'd be great. I think a couple of things. One is in the case study, we talk about one of the most exciting companies in Silicon Valley right now. They just raised a massive round with Iconic and Sequoia. We were privileged to be brought in when the business was, I think, still sub 8 figures, like first 10 million or so of revenue. And it was, I think, basically a one-person finance team who had all these other jobs to be done. And DSOs were in the high, like on an average net 30, we're talking 60 to 80 plus days. But on top of that, it was just the amount of human capital required to bring down that time was intense. And so they were looking at, okay, we're going to have to hire several people, both in-source and outsourced, but also like we need to increase our velocity of cash collections. And you fast forward 12 plus months, they've now, and this is all public in their announcement of their fundraise, like they've more than 4 to 5x revenue, same person running the team, significantly reduced to the mid to high 30s average days to pay. But then on top of that, just the efficiency, like the amount of time this very strategic finance leader who has a lot of other things to do is able to simplify on collections and all of their GAAP and non-GAAP reporting has been excellent. And so I think already we've been able to help folks like Statik save significant time and collect faster. And I'm very excited about where these technologies take us next to further elevate them and make them even more strategic.
To bring this to life, because a lot of our listeners are operations and finance team, they're that in-house finance team or even the outsourced accounting team who has this problem and they're being asked, can you really, what specifically is Tabs doing? Or paint us a before and after picture of like what a customer looks like before and after Tabs.
Yeah. So I'll give a great example of our business. Like even though we are now racing to our first like 100 employees, we have almost no one on the finance team. We have a fractional, and it is both something I enjoy doing, but I, as CEO, still run our billing and collections. And so why we've been able to do that is we've raced to hundreds and hundreds of contracts and customers is the simplicity of Tabs. So the way our product works, it directly pulls a contract when it's closed one. It could be from HubSpot or Salesforce. I love it actually coming directly from DocuSign. It hits Tabs. Tabs instantly processes it, creates an invoice, We are big on the future of AI being not just in a platform, but in collaboration software like Slack and in Teams. And so I get hit by tabs in Slack, says, hey, congrats on the new deal. Invoice is ready. Am I good to send this? And I take a quick look. If I have a question, I say, hey, show me a few more products. I just want to confirm everything's fine. I want to go look at the invoice. And I say, yes, invoice is sent. And then from there, tabs mostly does all of the back and forth with the customer. In B2B today, 80-90% of flow of funds are not moving through credit card. It's ACH credit, wire, and check. And so we're able to use AI and other technologies to read the bank feed, reconcile the metadata, provide the cash app, and we do what usually takes days in reading and typing of contracts, other than the approval of basically touching a steering wheel on a self-driving car. I do nothing other than just validate and check my cash forecast. And then that downstream, because we have the contract and the key information, we can then do both the gap. You can see the deferred revenue. We're mostly a flat SaaS product, but a usage product, a milestone, a one-time fee, professional services. And then you start to see some of the non-GAAP metrics that are important to me, like for our business, ARR and net dollar retention, down all the way to cash forecasting. So the idea is to not only give you what you're used to, very modern system of record, but use technologies like AI to never have to type something in and discern things and slowly validate versus originate. And I think this is the future of where we're headed with even more automation coming.
You also mentioned sort of this agentic future. So we have this interface pixels on a screen. We have an interface prompts. We have an interface LLMs, like maybe through Slack or Teams or something like that. What do you view the future interface to be? I mean, it's impossible to know what's happening like in 10 years, but like, what do you think the next kind of interface to how this works with? Is it agents, just agent talking to agent, and it's just you're getting an update? Is it what? Paint a picture for us of the future.
I more than ever in history, and I'm not saying I'm by any means a thought leader here, but I have spent now 2.5 years, and I believe done my 10,000 hours. And I believe we are now headed to an agentic future. The question is not if, but how fast and who's going to get us there. And so in that, Sasha, I have more clarity today of what that needs to look like than ever. And I'll tell you a couple things. One is, in order to do that in very intimate parts of a company like finance, you can't just go straight to an agent. There are a few steps before you must demonstrate trust with to ever get there. And so the best companies will first create a data moat, which helps understand a business in a way that structured data can't, meaning in our case, like a contract has so much rich information beyond a billing term or a contract start and end date. It has things like a cancellation clause. It has a renewal term. It has an escalator, things that otherwise would never live in Salesforce or NetSuite or QuickBooks, that now intelligent software like Tabs can actually organize, but also have context to. So the first part is access to a ton of unstructured data. We at Tabs call that the commercial graph, which is we've elevated all this information from your commercials, but we're also able to house them so that if you ever want to come find them, you can, or we can query it for more ambiguous tasks. The second is what I call still the hard work of building operational software. And this is where I think most YC companies and new age like founders are going to struggle, because they're going to jump straight to the shiny object, which is the agent. That's not good enough. You have to grind it out and build out really dense software features. Obviously, Sasha, you've been doing this for years. Like, there's a lot you have to build to catch up to the incumbents. And for us, like, there's revenue allocation, multi-entity, multi-currency. There's no agent that's going to solve for that. And so you have to have focus in the design and development to get to that. And then if you can do 1 and 2, but in number 2, you can make really thoughtful design decisions that say, look, this software needs to be operated on either by a human, but also an agent. You can then start to enable independent agents to start doing the work. And I don't believe you can just jump to 3. You must have 1 and 2, because if you do not have 1, the agent can't even get the context they need to be on par with a human.
Yeah.
If you don't have 2, a human will never trust you, because in a discipline like finance, you always have to show your work. And if you can't show your work, you are a headless agent, which in some functions, like maybe SDRs and BDRs and parts of, I don't know, marketing may be okay. But in finance, if you're a headless agent, you're a useless agent. And so uh, I think some of the best companies are doing this. I mean, we saw, I think yesterday, Ramp announced their agentic framework. I think they're thinking about it the right way. I think the future I think of is where a tabs agent can communicate with a Ramp agent without any human in the loop. And I actually think that's
a puzzle agent.
a puzzle agent would be awesome. Yeah, Sasha, I didn't know you had one. I don't want to take your thunder, but we're ready whenever you are.
We'll be there soon. Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And so to ultimately answer your question, like the way this is going to work, one where I have strong conviction is like operators, this 1-person finance team, or many of you joining today, you don't have the bandwidth to go to 16 different platforms and be in chatbots with agents. You don't have the ability. I mean, we're users of so many different software. I don't want to log into any of them. Like, I don't want to log into Stripe. That's my least favorite. But like even Ramp, like I take a photo of a receipt. I see most of my company's activity in Slack. And only if it's like something major am I going into Ramp. And so we're already headed in this direction outside of maybe the GL, where you may have to because of the amount of data piping in and out. And I think that's where, Sasha, you have a unique mode. But for the rest of us, we must meet you where you are talking to humans today, which is often Slack, Teams, email. And we must create interfaces where these agents can start to talk to other agents. And I think there's huge opportunity in the invoice to AP side of the house. Already in the last year, there's been so much fraud with LMs building out what look like real invoices, sending them into bill.com. And I actually think the only way we're going to get around it is like agents that can validate authenticity in a way that even humans can't today. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in this future.
Yeah, it's exciting. As we start thinking about it, I think it would be fun. What is your current, as a two-part answer, what is your current favorite feature in tabs? And then what is the one thing that you maybe had an assumption or a vision of before you started that ended up changing as you started actually building and being in market?
Yeah, I think 2 things. I just love beautiful software, and I think finance has been so left behind. And so I've been an early user of products like Notion and Linear, and even like we just moved from Salesforce to HubSpot. And so one of the ways of product design I'm a huge fan of is the Kanban view, where you can move kind of workflows and projects. And so one of the things, one of a brilliant designer on our team, John, built in their first month or so was this elegant way to think about invoices not as a news feed of like a bunch of structured invoices, but to elevate a Kanban, which could help you move tiles from overdue to paid, but do it in a way where you're not overwhelmed, because not every invoice is the same. It's either the ones that are the highest dollar amount or the ones that are showing the signals that they're least likely to pay based on other metadata. And so our collections Kanban is one of my favorite. I have a close second, which is cash forecasting. It is one of the hardest things to do for most operators. For founders listening today, or FP&A leads or CFOs, it's likely the number you miss the most in board meetings between your gross and net burn is your actual cash collections and receipts. And I think those 2 are things we've done incredibly well, but are often not really understood until you come on to tabs. I think the thing that I overspent time on early and I realized was not that big of a deal was actually dunning, the actual invoice communication. There's a lot of startups going after it. There's this huge wave of, oh man, how do we create more escalated dunning or agentic calling? And what I ultimately learned is there are 2 things. One is the number one reason people don't get paid on time is not because they don't send enough reminders. It's because they don't invoice on time. And the number one area we add value is moving from what typically is deals get done at the end of a month or quarter. You have to close your monthly books, you have a board meeting, and by the time most finance teams actually get to building invoice, it's like 2 to 3 weeks into that net 30. No one's paying you on the other side of the house in 10 days. And so the biggest fallacy I've seen in the market is dunning automation and putting a lot of time and effort there. Are there ways we have to improve the interaction between AR and AP and portals like Coupa and Ariba and all of the enterprises that have their own? Absolutely. But if you do not invoice on time, nothing else matters. And that's the number one place to get your house.
I love it. I love it. So you recently raised a little bit of venture capital. Tell us a little bit about how that raise came together.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been very fortunate on is this idea that there's going to be major platforms or best of breed around the ERP. And I think I got to, and we've talked about this actually, I got to get introduced to Justin, who had been at Stripe for a long time and was thinking a lot about why doesn't there exist this modern platform layer? And obviously Lightspeed had done investments like Carta and Navan and were so domain knowledgeable about where these platforms can be built. And so about a year ago, we did a seed. And during then, I got to also at the tail end, right as I was about to move forward with Justin, I got to meet Alex at General Catalyst and got to meet the team there. I appreciate everything you said at the beginning. It's all true. And I fully stand by him being just a phenomenal investor. And I got to know the whole GC team, which you and I mutually know. And I was just so impressed by the amount of research they had done around the ERP. Obviously, GC is an early investor in Stripe and Gusto. Alex led their investment in Ramp. And so they've been thinking about where the GL and ERP are headed. Obviously, Puzzle as one of their most prolific investments. And so when you think about that, I just got to spend a lot of time right after the seed with that team. And we both just mutually built conviction that, hey, there's a really big swing here on the revenue side. And Ali, you've done a lot of the first principle thinking. It aligns with our research, but also we've helped scale platforms that have such bold visions. And we were fortunate for that to come together about right at the tail end of last year and further capitalize to move on offense as we were finding some really good market signals.
Yeah, I mean, two of just, I think personally, some of the most amazing, thoughtful fintech investors in the space. So congrats on getting both of them. So the concept of kind of them having a prepared mind and you coming in with first principles thinking got to an alignment that there's an opportunity here. What was it that like right now you think got them to a yes?
I think it was the moment. Like, I think no one wanted to just hear another AR and invoicing software. We have plenty. Obviously, we just saw the Melio acquisition. Bill.com has a product, all the way up to Zora and a bunch of skeleton companies that have been around for a decade in the coffers. And so I think there needed to be a refresh thinking that could explain why there's a unique moment now. And I think our ability to talk about back to this commercial graph concept, this ability to completely reimagine the category from a data moat, I think that was incredibly helpful. And so I think for us, the ability to provide a refreshed perspective on how this category can be reimagined, coupled with a very unique approach versus just saying, hey, we're going to use AI for dunning or to apply Cash App on payments. Like, I think we were able to think bigger in terms of the opportunity, knowing that there's going to be a lot of unknowns in terms of where we take this as we learn with customers and a lot of the changes in AI. And I think that uniquely allowed us to differentiate our pitch in market.
How, for any founders listening out there, what advice do you give them? Because you're one coming into an industry that has some large incumbents. There also isn't like kind of a clear winner in this space from an accounting ERP. What do you think went really well? Or what advice do you give them on like what went well? And then maybe anything you do differently in today's environment when rethinking like a big pitch, a big ambition?
I think there's a couple of things. One is just overall in life, what I've learned is you just have to go after an incredibly large TAM that is also potentially going through a reset moment with a technological macro that is shifting. And I think us seeing what had happened in 2023, the massive growth Ramp had, Rippling had coming off of multi-billion-dollar raises. And so there was some signals to say, all right, there's something going on that is missing on the other side of the ERP. But then I think AI being this reimagined time, I think those were like two important like elements to this. I think the most important thing though I would say is often there's this urgency to start and build and ship right away. And it's really hard, right? Like most of the earliest investors will say, look, you got to charge for your products, you got to start building and getting people to use it. I think my original academic thinking actually came to use in life where I was like, look, even we were privileged primary kind of gave us a blank check to try to figure out this problem. I said, look, team, we're not going to build anything for at least 3 to 6 months, but I need to jam our schedules. I want to have at least 5 to 8 calls a day. And I want to pitch this problem and listen to anyone, any place, any company size willing to explain if this is a problem or not. Is just this Ali was a bad operator and didn't know how to do this, or is this a broader symptom? And not only were we able to validate the problem in those 3 to 6 months, we were able to validate the point of where that problem originated, and then also learn a lot about who our ICP was going to be. Because I think you can even solve the best problem, but if you're trying to sell from everyone to a seed round company and a Fortune 50, it just doesn't work. And so that focus and being able to do that groundwork was incredibly helpful, because then when we were able to activate, we knew exactly who to design and develop around. We could be hyper focused on where to start and where to end. And then we could sell the crap out of it while we were building. That drove so much early demand that kind of put us off to the races. So that's my playbook, Sasha.
Love it. All right. So sort of a fairly fresh 25 million in the coffers. What does the next 12 to 18 months look like, and what are you the most excited about?
Yeah, I think a few things. One is we just want to go out and get the product in the hands of as many folks as possible. And I think a year ago when we were starting, there was still this like antsiness around AI. And now I think there's such an openness to it, but most of our partners, particularly in the CFO stack, are saying, look, we are tasked to use AI here. What's a really good gateway to start, knowing that I'm not going to, in many cases, reimagine all of my current tooling? And so a big part of our investment is how do we accelerate our ability to get tabs in the hands of many new GL and ERP users, like you all and like some of the friends you've brought on the last couple of weeks, the Rillets, et cetera, of the world. But also, how do we bring in a wedge into NetSuite, Sage, QuickBooks for a lot of folks who aren't getting AI and automation there, but have a big boulder of operations that can get reimagined with AI. So our acceleration is to bring a platform that we feel is now really feeling like product market fit and put it in the hands of folks to both use it, save time, collect faster, but then also build with us. And so we are now just high velocity with many great partners, continuing to evolve the product. I'd say that's the core mandate. And then with the use of funds now, we're able to actually go into the more innovation and science of labs and in parallel track, take some of the big problems we identify that are only so good with AI and automation, start to think about where new technologies such as agentic ones with partners like LangChain and LangGraph and others to start to create experiences that I think finance has never even thought of and bring them to the market, hopefully faster than anyone else.
That's exciting. We'll have to come back in another year and do a revisit and think what has changed. Of course, all that's going to depend on whatever Sam Altman tweets over the next couple of months and when GPT-5 comes out and who knows what. All right, last question. What's something that you believe about the future of finance that you think others might not?
I think a few things. I actually think it's really exciting to be in finance. And I think there's this overall concern, and I hear this from all the time, we're going to a 0-person, 1-person company and 0-person finance team. I don't actually believe that. I think there's a creative part of finance where the CFO, the controller, finance leadership, even sub-leadership, brings very creative minds and strategic minds to organizations, whether that's around pricing or operating plan or product strategy. And so I am generally more bullish on the finance professional as a leader in the company than I've ever been. What I'm more excited about is the amount of time technologists like us at Tabs can enable for them to do more with less, but also use all of that amazing creativity they can bring to an org, especially at a time when the CFO, I think, is more elevated than ever. And in many orgs, on par with even a CEO or a CTO or a CPO, to give them back that time and energy that goes into very tactical things like billing and revenue accounting, to bring that energy to more creative revenue and high growth initiatives. And so that's where I believe. Like, I am not one to say we're going to get rid of finance or it's going to be a 0-person team. I'm one to say we're going to make the team in some areas more efficient, but also certainly more creative and strategic to elevate the function even further.
Man, I want to change our pricing model to be contract related just so I can be a bigger, better Tabs customer. For those of you listening out there who do have these contracts, we're stuck in this old way of doing stuff, this very manual place, might have all of this sort of AR sitting to be collected. How do people learn more about Tabs? Where do they find you?
100%. Obviously, it's tabs.inc, tabsplatform.com, whatever you prefer. But also just email me. I love to take as many first calls and second calls or talk to customers and partners as much as possible. So it's just Ali, ALI, at tabs.inc. Shoot me an email and we'll set up some time for me to walk you through the platform personally.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing more about the story, and excited about your future. Keep it up.
Sasha, always an honor. So good to see you. And I can't wait to break bread in either New York or San Francisco later this summer.
Or both. All right. Talk soon, everybody.
Take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Tech Finance with Puzzle and Turpentine. If you got value from this episode, please share it with anybody building or funding the future of technology. And please leave us a review wherever you're listening and tell me about what you want to hear more of. If you're looking for accounting software you'll actually love to power your company, check out Puzzle.io, the modern accounting platform for the AI era. Tech Finance is part of Turpentine, the awesome podcast network behind Econ 102 with Noah Smith, Turpentine VC, Complex Systems with Patrick McKenzie, and so many more.